Hello and welcome to this short demo on how to integrate your on-premise VM with Gloo Mesh running on public cloud, typically an hybrid cloud scenario. For this demonstration, I'm going to have two clouds, cluster 1, which is deployed on Google Cloud running on GKE, which has a service called as blue-green canary deployed with the version blue on it. I'm having another cloud, cluster 2, which is deployed on Sever Cloud, and this is going to have a same blue-green canary application, but a different version called as green deployed on it. Finally, I have a local VM which is residing in my laptop running within a Vagrant environment that's going to have a version canary in it, and also it has Istio sidecar running as part of the system. And we have another service called as blue-green canary here as well, which is a local service that is running. NARY, and here, which is a canary version of it running in this one. So let's now go and integrate this one. So to get started, let's go and access the service that is running here. So I'm just going to go to my cloud and then say 35. So that's my IP address for this service. By default, the service is configured to have a blue version of the service running for this. So this is coming from a blue pod. If you see on my screen, like if you go here, the 64 is a blue pod that is running on this, and that's a message count is just a count of number of messages that is getting received on this cluster. All right. So I don't have any traffic policy right now configured. That's the reason by default I made my route table to go and hit this service. So let's go and apply a policy, right? Basically mean to say, okay, let me route my traffic between the blue, the green, and my VM workload that is residing in my cluster. All right. So, but before we go there, let's go and see how my integration is done from my VM to this, right? So I'm using cluster 1 to do this integration. If you go to cluster 1 and if I see my namespace, I have a VM blue-green canary deployed, and it does not have any workload because my workload resides on a sidecar in my VM. But basically I need to have something called as a workload entries, and it should have one blue-green canary entry that is pointing to my IP address that is there on my VM, right? So if I do an IPA on my VM, I should see this IP address here, right? 192.168.14. That's where my resource resides. I just need to configure this workload entry here. That's the only thing which is required. And then I will have a service that is going to point to this workload that's going to do this job for me. Okay, this is a local Kubernetes service that will be used in my traffic routing. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is going to apply a traffic policy. Let me go to my traffic policy and show you what I have here. So I'm going to apply this blue-green canary traffic policy, which is a Gloo Mesh resource end of the day. So that's going to go through my default route, which is what you're seeing right now. But here it's going to do a traffic shift between these services, right? I'm going to go to cluster 1, which is a blue one for 40%. And then I'm going to go to the version green one for 40%. And finally, I'm going to go to the service VM blue-green canary on the namespace. If you remember, we had a service created already that we just saw a couple of minutes back, and I'm going to route 20% of the traffic to that particular service. Okay, this is typical Istio weighted routing. That's what we're going to do right now. Let's go and do this. So I'm just going to go, I have a script that applies this. I just say tutorial om, and then I say, if I remember correctly, 12 blue-green canary. Okay. So if you want to do a cat, it's nothing but it just do an apply of my traffic policy XML. All right. So I'm just going to do this traffic policy here. I'm just going to apply this traffic policy. And now you should start to see the traffic splitting across all the three things, right? Right now we should see a traffic that goes to green getting started right now. That's the reason. And in fact, you see it goes to your VM as well, right? And you get a bigger message count for blue because it has been running for some time. So let's wait to watch this for a few seconds, right? We should see the traffic right now going more to blue and then more to green and pretty less to your yellow, right? Which is your canary deployment that is running right on my VM. Okay. So if you want to see if this is coming to the VM, let's go and watch the logs on the VM as well, right? So sudo, let me do this. Let me clear the screen and then let me see if I have tail. Sudo tail -f/var log istio.log, and you should see the inbound traffic rules coming inside, right? When it hits hello, right? I'm just going to show that for you in a second. Once it hits hello, you should see a route coming inside here, right? So this is going to go and call this particular stuff for you, right? We are calling that, and the route comes here, checks if we have proper RBACs enabled, and then it goes here, right? And then let's wait for a second. We got an LO call here, and soon we should get an LO log here on this cluster. Okay, you see there, so this is coming from my cluster. If you see, this is coming from 162.6.0.3. That's an inbound. That call is coming via my what I call your ingress gateway IP, right? That's what we have, 35.244.63.21 into my cluster. Okay, which means that my call is getting integrated here and coming inside my cluster. I'm happy with this, right? And I can do the same thing, right? I can also do the same thing. Let me go and call the service from here as well, HTTP, and then call the service from the VM. I should see a similar one, whatever is running there, right? I should saw a green earlier, and then again, if I do a green, I should see a green one more time, and then now if I do a blue, I should see a blue one more, right? This 99 goes here, 98 is what I got here, okay? So it takes the same traffic policy that gets applied, right? Because I have not changed anything in the VM. The traffic policy got applied on my Gloo Mesh cluster. But now when I go and call it from the VM picks up from that because the VM is connected to the STOD that is running on the cluster 1. So I don't have that on cluster 2 for this demo. So it's running on cluster 1 and it's picking up the same traffic policy rules that is applied there and then gets your response here as well. Okay. That's from the traffic side of things, right? But technically, when you're integrating these kind of hybrid cloud scenarios, what you expect is that you want to have some kind of an RBAC in place. What do you mean by RBAC, right? So mean to say, like, I don't want everybody to access all my services across all my clouds, including my on-premise VM. Okay, technically it's an on-premise VM, which means I should have some confidential data in it. Okay, so I want to restrict the access. So let's see what I have right now with my access policy. By default, I have an open access policy. I've disabled the access policy initially to start with this demo. So now let me go and enable the access policy, right? And you should keep watching on my browser window right now. The moment I enable it, the traffic closes and you should get an RBAC denied exception or some kind of an 404 error or something like that. Okay. So let me go and do this. Let me go and apply my traffic policy. I remember dollar ohm, and then it should be 17 toggle mesh access policy. So when I do this one right now, it's not disabled, it's enabled right now, and you should soon see an RBAC denied, right? It's an application error basically. If I go do a refresh again, because it's trying to go reach my pod, I should get an access denied. Let me go and check the same thing from my VM as well, and then if I go and call it from the VM, I should, okay, it takes a bit of time for this. Yeah, now we get, right? So now we get an access policy denied exception as well. So because let me tail the log for some time so that you can see this 403 error here as well, right? Because it's not allowing any traffic to come in. Okay, that's great. So my traffic is blocked right now. So let me go and start applying, slowly opening up, right? The very first thing I want to do is that I want to open the traffic for the clusters alone, right? So what should I do for that is that I just go and open an access policy saying that any call that is coming from my ingress service account should be allowed from any cluster. Still, we don't have the VM in play here. It goes to your service matcher, which is a blue-green canary, and just blue-green canary namespace alone. I'm not using VM blue-green canary. I'll come back to that in a second. Let's go and do this, right? So let's go and apply, and I should have the first one that get applied is to just open up my ingress via thing, right? If I just do a cat, it's nothing but the same access policy which we saw right now. I'm just going to apply this, and it's going to open my traffic right now with access policies enabled. And then when I go and do a refresh here, I should see the traffic flowing back to green and blue, but you should see a client file error. And when you go to your VM, right, you should see the call here, the access denied, right? The RBAC access denied because I've not opened up the VM yet. That's the reason you see here. If I do a refresh back, it should go to between blue and green, but in the second you should see a failure. You should see here your thing fails back. You see a log here again, RBAC access denied in few seconds. Okay, that's the access policy denied again for you because we are not allowing the VM add. Okay, let's go and do that, right? So what should I do to allow the VM? So the VM, if you remember, we created a workload entry inside the workload and the service entry inside our Istio cluster in a different namespace. So basically what I need to allow, if you remember, the earlier traffic policy does not have the VM blue green canary namespace. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to allow the VM blue green canary namespace here, and then from the Istio cluster. Okay. The moment I do this, you should be back to our normal state where I should be able to do the access. So that's going to be 19, if I remember correctly. Just number it for my convenience. There is no big deal. Just going to apply this, enable access to VM. So which means that my traffic can flow from here. So that's what the apply that I'm going to do right now. And the moment I do this, what basically is going to happen, I'm going to be back because I have not changed my traffic policy yet. It's going to distribute between blue, green and canary. So let's see, let's give a few more refreshes because now we get your VM also here, and then you get blue, you get green, and in a second you should also get blue. Okay, now the traffic is back to access. I'm able to do this blue, green, canary traffic from outside is allowing inside the VM. Okay, but one thing we have not, if you have probably would have guessed it by now, I have not opened the traffic yet from the VM onto the cluster, which means that the old call which we did like this will not go through. I get an RBAC denied exception because I opened the traffic from the outside world via the ingress coming into my VM, but I have not opened the traffic that needs to go from the VM to the cluster. Okay, that's what we need to do one more time. So that's what I'm going to do. Let's go and check what that traffic policy, access policy looks like. The similar access policy where I have from the service account VM blue, green, canary, and then I'm going to say the destination selector is going to be my blue, green, canary, and I just allow the default namespace and go to these clusters, which means that I can access all the services across these Gloo Mesh clusters using the Istio sidecar that is running inside my VM. All right, let's go and apply this one as well. So let me go to my management thing, and then I say 20, which is what I have. Enable access from the VM, and now we are super good. And let me go and see this one here, and then go repeat the same call again. And there you see, right? I should get a call to this one, right? Whatever is coming there, 138 blue and 139 blue is coming there, right? It gets synchronized automatically for you and gives you a similar call. Now I go to Hola, I can go back and call the same service that is running inside my local host, also from this, right? And all through this Istio URL, right? Sorry, Kubernetes URL end of the day. And that's pretty much it, right? So what we have seen so far is that we are able to enable the access policy. We have brought in a VM into the Gloo Mesh cluster. We made it to be part of this. And for now, as of current version of it, we have to do a manual workload entry. And then we created them and made the cluster and run a sidecar on the VM that was able to do your job. And then we apply traffic policy to route the traffic between the clusters, the public cloud, and in your on-premise VM. And also we try to access the services inside the cluster from the VM as well. And lastly, we apply the traffic policies. Lastly, we apply the access policies to make sure that we control who can access what. And that's pretty much it for this demo. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.